Hello, welcome to this DCS A-10C2 tutorial. In this video, I'll be covering the use of laser-guided rockets and laser-guided bombs. So to begin, I have put on pylons 9 and 3 under bombs, the BRU-42 with 3X GBU-12s, 500-pound laser-guided bombs, 3 500-pound laser-guided bombs. On pylon 2, I put a single 500-pound laser-guided bomb, the GBU-12. On pylon 4, under air-to-ground missiles, I have the 3X Lao 131 pod, which has 7 times 3, 7 per pod, so a total of 21 laser-guided rockets. The MPP is the armor-piercing version of it. On pylon 8, under air-to-ground missiles, I have the same thing, except the HE version, the high-explosive version, utilized for light or unarmored targets. As always, once your rearming is complete, go to your load page, load all, and when that's done, you will see all of your stores on your Dismas. I'll go ahead and hide my helmet real quick so we can look at this page in a little bit easier detail. Now, on your Dismas here, we will see, as usual, all of our munitions and how many of each we have on each pylon. And in addition to that, we now have a number code listed on the pylon. This is the laser code we have assigned to our munition, and the laser code it will search out and follow as it goes towards its target. In order to change the laser code, we will go into the inventory page, choose the pylon we wish to set the code for. In this case, I will do the air-to-ground laser-guided missiles. So I'll choose pylon 4. We will now hit inventory stat. And over here we see the laser code currently programmed. We will also see brackets, and that is letting us know we can input information utilizing our keypad here to change it. We will cover a whole bunch of different settings in the weapon configuration tutorial, but today we're only going to be worrying about the laser code. So to set the laser code, I will come up to my keypad. If you're a member of the Damned, your laser code is predefined for you based on your board number. If you don't know what it is, feel free to contact me and we'll sort it out. If you are not a member of the Damned, you can put this whatever you like, but it's good to change it off the default so someone else isn't accidentally stealing your munitions if they are utilizing laser codes. So I'll come up here, and in this case, my laser code will be 1683. So I'll type 1683, and we will see that on our HUD down here. After I have the 1683 entered, I can just click the laser code button, and now we see it updated to 1683. After the laser code is updated, I can come down to the load button, and now if we go back to our Dismas, we will see the laser code flashing here is 1683. I'll do the same for the other missile pylon. Inventory, select the pylon, inventory stat, input my laser code, 1683. Say I accidentally mistyped a number, I can hit the clear key, and it will backspace once. All right, 1683 is entered. I will hit the laser code button. It is now 1683, load. That saves any changes we made in there. If we backed out of that page without hitting load, nothing would have been saved. At this point, I'll do my GBU-12s. One thing to note, here we can see we have the same exact munition in a symmetrical configuration on our aircraft. So when we go in, we can select either pylon, inventory stat, input my laser code, click the laser code button, and because they are symmetrically loaded on our airplane, we can hit, instead of load, just doing this pylon, we can hit load sim, load symmetric, to mirror the settings for this pylon to the other pylon. Now we see both GBU-12 pylons, because they are exactly symmetric and the same, are 1683. It can save you a lot of time if you configure your plane in a symmetric manner. Because this is not symmetrically loaded for this GBU-12, I will click my GBU-12, inventory stat, laser code, and load. Now we can see all of our laser codes for all of our munitions are set to whatever we desire. In my case, 1683. I can go back to my Dismas. Once again, to enter any of these configurations, we'll go into the inventory page, select the pylon, inventory stat, and then we can change options. We'll talk about this in more detail in the weapons configuration video, but for now, we'll just keep it simple. Now that all of our munitions are configured, we can worry about configuring our targeting pod. So I'll put it into air-to-ground mode. It's finished warming up. I'll hit the CNTL control page button. And now we see on the left L for our laser code and LSS laser search code. The laser search code is utilized for buddy lasing, which we'll cover in a later tutorial. But for now, we'll set them both to our desired code, just to prevent any possible confusion with other laser codes in the area. So I'll hit my code, 1683. Once again, we can see it on our HUD. I will click the L button. It updates, and I'll do that again. 16. I mistyped, so I'll hit clear. 1683. LSS. Now we have our pod code set appropriately. This is the laser code that will be utilized when we fire the laser coming out of our targeting pod, this L. I can now hit return. And our pod and our bombs are all set up. You can do this in the air as you're flying towards your target to save you time, but I'll talk about that more in the advanced startup tutorial video covered after we go through all of our munitions. I'll navigate over, utilizing my TAD, the same way we did before, to our standard gunnery range. Gavabrati, put down a mark point. Switch myself to mark mode. Just like in the unguided tutorial video, I'll make my targeting pod my speed. Right now it's still on the default of steer point. Targeting pod sensor of interest, target management switch forward long. And now my targeting pod is my speed. I will slave my targeting pod to my desired mark point with long China hat aft. And now I can utilize it for navigation. I'll go ahead and bring my helmet back up so we can see that. If you wish to toggle your helmet, you can do that by making your helmet your sensor of interest, shown by the asterisk in the corner, and then doing a long press left on the display management switch, DMS. Long press left turns it off. Long press left turns it on, with our helmet as our sensor of interest. I'll go ahead and make my targeting pod my sensor of interest again, and fly out over towards that target area. You could have noticed when I opened the rearming page, our aircraft is relatively heavy, so our takeoff is going to be a little bit long today. As I'm taxiing over, I'll make sure my flaps are in maneuver, set my takeoff trim. I'm going to put my autopilot to path, just so I don't have to do it in the air. A nice perk of the laser-guided munitions is they can be used on moving targets, because if you recall from our targeting pod and SPI video, we can put our pod into a point track mode, and that will lock it on to whatever heat source we have the pod on, and that will just follow the vehicle or target as it's moving. And that will allow the munition to follow that laser all the way in and hopefully hit the target. After I show a heavier takeoff here, I'll pause it and pick up with you when we're closer to the target area, so we don't just have some downtime flying with nothing happening. All right, I'm going to throttle up, flaps for maneuver, already set my takeoff trim, going to release, my engines have spooled. I'm going to go ahead and turn off my nose wheel steering. Once I hit 135, I'm going to pull up about 5 degrees. And now I'm just going to hold it and wait for the plane to take off. All right. I'm slowly raising. I'm going to wait till I get about 200 knots of speed before I put my gear up, just to guarantee that I have a solid climb. You can see I'm just holding it here at 5. All right, I'm close to 200 knots. Gear up. Flaps up. And I'm going to fly over towards the target area. Pick back up with you in just a moment. All right, we're getting closer, so let's configure our plane. I'll open up my Dismas. I'm already armed and trimmed out. We'll cover the laser-guided bombs first. So I will select the pylons with the bombs that I wish to utilize, and I'll put it into CCRP mode. And we'll get our classic CCRP symbology from when we were utilizing the dumb bombs. I'll put my targeting pod into black hot because that is my preference. And I'll start looking for targets. Luckily we can see them pretty easily, so I don't need to adjust my gain or my brightness. So I'm going to actually start marking things. Throw a mark point there. Throw a mark point there. Throw a mark point there. Doesn't have to be precise. I will get it more on target when I actually go to drop the bomb. Throw a mark point there. And as you saw, I worked from left to right to prevent myself from marking the same target multiple times. See another target, and I'll go ahead and mark that. This is just to save myself time down the line so I don't need to start searching for things. We can see once again all of our mark points. And now we can go in to fire these munitions just like we would the unguided, except It doesn't matter the altitude that we are firing at, we just need to make sure that we can laze the target from the time we release it all the way until the time it impacts. So I'm going to start flying the line. I'll put my targeting pod on the vehicle this time. It's not like the unguided, we were aiming it at the base so we can hit the ground under it. Because we're lasing the target, we can put it right on the vehicle. And I'm actually going to switch myself to point track so it doesn't drift. To fire our laser, we can hit our nose wheel steering button, and you will see the L on the targeting pod start to flash. That lets us know we are firing our laser. And we will also see that on our HUD, there's an L right here. And when we fire our laser, it will flash. So at this point, we treat it just like the unguided munitions. We will fly the line. It starts to drop. I hold my weapon release button. The munition has fallen off the plane, and I will start firing my laser. Go ahead and throw on my autopilot so we can watch that bomb fall in. And it's following the laser. You can see it kind of wobbling back and forth. That's it correcting across the laser beam, back and forth until it finds its way into the target. Spot on where we were aiming. Much easier than utilizing the unguided bombs. I turn my laser off after the bomb hits. We can see the L stops flashing. You need to be aware of turning your laser on and off at the appropriate times. If you just leave it on all of the time, you can actually burn out your laser, and then you will no longer have it until you repair your plane, get a new targeting pod, all of that good stuff. So you only want to have your laser firing while your munition is in the air. Now I could slew my targeting pod onto a new target manually, but since I already marked the mark points, I'm going to utilize that to make my life easier. I will slave my targeting pod back to mark points with long pressed China hat aft, make my HUD my sensor of interest with the asterisk, and utilize my display management switch, DMS, up to go to mark point B, and now my pod is already near the other target. I'll make my targeting pod my sensor of interest, move it onto the target, and leave it in area track. The only time we put the targeting pod into a point track with our TMS target management switch forward short is when we are actually going in on the attack run. I find that if we put it in a point track mode and then lose sight of the target, it can actually move our targeting pod off of where we were. Whereas if we were in area track, it's kind of locking it to those ground coordinates and making life a little easier. Alright, I'll turn back in. Flying the tone. Getting myself the tightest turn rate possible. And you're seeing I'm much higher than I was in the unguided video. I could even be above the clouds. We just need to make sure the laser is not going to be blocked at any point by terrain or clouds as we're guiding the bomb in. Alright, I'm moving in for my attack run, so I will go ahead, get a good targeting pod picture, and move it to point track with target management switch forward short, and just fly the line to the best of my abilities. The nice thing about these being guided munitions is we don't have to be perfectly on the line, as we were with the dumb bomb tutorial. We can be slightly off, something like this, and it shouldn't matter too much, but I'm still going to fly the line to the best of my ability. The further off the line, the more the bomb has to correct, and that can make it slightly more inaccurate. Alright, the ball is dropping. Hold my weapon release button. The HUD flashed, the munitions off the pylon, fire my laser. L is flashing. L is flashing, telling us our laser is firing. Now we just wait for the munition to hit. Spot on. Easy as that. All right, that's pretty much covers it for the guided bombs. I'm actually going to go ahead and jettison these now. So I can hit Station Jettison, select the pylons I wish to jettison, and then hit my weapon release button. Press and hold. And now all of those pylons have dropped off of my airplane. Go back to my Dismas, and I no longer have those munitions. So that's a nice easy way to jettison specific munitions if you don't want to hit your emergency jettison and get rid of everything. At this point, I will go ahead and select the left pylon here, these air-to-ground rockets. And now for our air-to-ground guided rockets, we can use them in CCIP or CCRP, but it is my personal preference to always utilize them in CCIP. So that's what I'll be showing here today. CCRP has extremely limited uses, and I find myself just never using it. Once again, I'll go ahead and slew my targeting pod onto one of the other targets I've already marked. Keeping it in area track until I go in for a attack run. Now these laser guided rockets are good to about 6 miles maximum. So keep that in mind as far as your distance to your target shown on your targeting pod in the lower right. We can see it's about 6.6 right now and then dropping. We can see our standard symbology for our rocket CCIP. And all we're going to do when we're within about 6 miles is fire our laser, put our targeting HUD in the general area of the target, and hit weapon release. At this point, we just guide it all the way in, put it in point track there, just like we would for a regular munition, but I'm going to turn off to keep myself out of danger. Just make sure you have a view of it the entire time. And shack the target. I'll do that with the other pylon now. Get myself another target. As you saw, we don't need to put the targeting reticle on the HUD directly on the target. Just point your plane in the general area. These rockets can curve a little bit, but not drastically. So you do need to have them somewhere on this front section of your HUD, for example. They won't curve all the way out to the sides or all the way down or all the way up. If you get very creative with them, it is possible to use these on aerial targets utilizing the point track, but I'm not going to cover that. That's something you can experiment with and play around with. It can be useful for helicopters. The odds of you hitting a jet utilizing that are basically 0. Alright, flying in, put this in point track now that I'm on my run. I can see my speed. I'll put my HUD near it, fire my rocket, and I'll actually fire 2. Fire my laser. And just make sure that your plane has a view of the target the entire way the rockets are traveling. and shack the target. Alright, now I'm going to show a technique you can utilize with these rockets that's a bit more advanced. It'll take some practice to get used to, but it is a very powerful tool. It will allow you to engage multiple targets in a single run, as opposed to the classical sense of utilizing a laser to only engage one target at a time in a single run. So I'll move my pod over to this guy, and I see two targets, one there and one about there. So that's who I'm going to worry about for this attack run. Go back to area track since I'm not on my attack run. I'm going to fly out a little bit and then I'll turn back in to give me some more time to work. Throw myself into maneuver flaps so I can get a tighter turn here. Alrighty. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fire one rocket, wait a couple seconds, and then fire another rocket. And then after the first rocket hits, I'm going to slew my targeting pod onto the second target. So I'll fire my laser, fire one rocket, fire rocket two, and if I'm fast enough, I can move my targeting pod onto the second target after the first one hits. I don't think I will be because these targets are fairly separated. Move this other one. Nope. But we could see that the explosions ended up following the second targeting pod target rather than the first because we split it off the target. This is useful mainly for things very close together, but it can give you a general idea. Just keep in mind that these are very fast-moving rockets, so it'll come with practice, and your targets have to be fairly close. These were a little far away from each other. I was only able to move my targeting pod about that far off until the second rocket ended up hitting. Alright, that covers how to utilize all of your laser-guided bombs and rockets. The technique is the same for any laser-guided munition. That was all fine and dandy. I know I demonstrated point track for these stationary targets, and I told you it works for moving. I'm going to pause here, fly over to some actual moving targets, and then I'll demonstrate the point track and how it tracks a moving target. So I'll be back with you in just 1 second. Alrighty, so I'm approaching this convoy we have driving through the mountains. Now, I could navigate to them utilizing the same mark point method, find some landmarks, in this case, say, where this river has this split right here, throw a mark point, fly over to it. But I'm going to demonstrate just utilizing regular map navigation, so I need to fly about 322. Now, utilizing the regular map navigation without a mark point out there, we see that our targeting pod is still slewed to the mark points on the targets we were just at. Instead of trying to slew our targeting pod from 40 miles behind us all the way in front of us, what we can do is come over to our targeting pod page, and there is this B-S button. This stands for bore sight, and if we click this, it will move our targeting pod directly in front of our aircraft. So I'll go ahead and click that now. Click the BS. And now it has moved our targeting pod to centered bore sight position, and it has changed our SPI back to steer point. So I'm going to make my targeting pod my SPI again with TMS long press forward. And now it's a lot easier for me to just find a new target somewhere out in front of me. Once again, say it was over somewhere and I wanted to get it back to center. can press the bore sight button, it moves it back, and then I just need to make it my SPI once again. And as long as we don't slew the targeting pod, it'll just stay locked in a bore sight position until we move it, and then it will be ground stabilized. I'll do that one more time. Bore sight, SPI, and I'll keep it like that until I have a visual on the targets, and then I'll just move it over towards them. Alright, I'm coming up. They're about 5 miles in front of me, so I'm actually going to move my targeting pod until it shows about 5 miles. I know they're somewhere down here. Okay, there they are. I'll move my targeting pod over that area, and I can see the convoy down here. So now if I put the targeting pod cursor in the way of the convoy, put it to point track, it will lock onto the heat signature contrast that it sees, and now it's following the target. So if I turn in to do my attack run, I will put my targeting cursor in the general area of the target, fire my laser with my nose wheel steering button, weapon release to fire the munition, and it will go in towards that moving target. Good hit. As always, we need to make sure that the laser is not obstructed by clouds or terrain or trees or what have you. And I'll put it back to an area track until I come in for my next run. Here I'll attempt to demonstrate what I had shown before we moved over here, firing 2 different rockets to hit 2 separate targets. Should be a bit easier because they're closer together now. But we'll see if I can pull it off. Alright, so I'm going to try and fly along the road. And I'll get it into a point track and try and lock a target. Alright, I have a point track on the target. I'm going to point my plane towards it, fire my laser, 1 rocket away, wait a few seconds, rocket 2 away, and now to the best of my abilities, I'm going to try and slew the targeting pod. Oh, there we go, got hit by a tree. So the second rocket ended up hitting because it was able to snake through the tree. Always be aware of your attack angles and approaches to make sure that it is not obstructed. That's why I tried to come in along the road, but they hit a turn in the road, a little snake, and that ended up causing the laser to be blocked by a tree and sent the rocket into the tree. I'll do that one more time, see if I can't show it successfully, but if not, hopefully you get the idea of separating your rocket releases, and then once the first hits, we'll just move it onto the second target while you're still firing your laser. One final time, fire your laser with your nose wheel steering button, turn it off with the same button, and fire your rockets with your weapon release button. Alright, move my pod over the convoy. I have a lock again, point track lock. And then I'll try and turn in, see if I can't be a little bit more successful. I'm lining up for that straightaway, but hopefully there won't be any trees to block me. In fact, I'll go for a target on the straightaway. Alright, lock, laser, fire 1. Wait, fire 2. And then hopefully once that first one hits, I'll be able to slew my pod onto a second target. There's 1. And there's 2. So hopefully it's going to take a lot of practice, but it shows you that with the proper timing of your separation and some quick targeting pod work, you can engage more than one target in a single pass. All right, that covers all of your basics. One final thing to note, as I mentioned, you want to come in with the direction of travel that the enemy is flying, not only to reduce the chances of obstructions, but also to make your munition have to work less. So coming in either with the direction of travel or against it makes your munition not have to correct left or right, and it will make it more accurate. If I was coming in perpendicular to the direction of travel, not only would my bomb have to calculate guidance for the forward backward direction, but also left and right. So that would make it be a bit less accurate, and where possible, you want to be coming with or against the directions of travel. That covers all of the basics. Thanks for watching.